What is going on, good people? It has been a nice week so far. I've been on vacation, and because the kids are in school this week, it has given me and my wife both plenty of time with basically no obligations to do and go wherever we want within reason. So the other day we decided we would take a trip to Hot Springs, Arkansas, which is interesting for us because it's not terribly far from where we live, but yet every time we go, it kind of feels like if you've ever been to Austin, Texas, you'll note that Austin just has this separate feel and just vibe about the place that doesn't quite feel like the rest of Texas, and that's how Hot Springs is. It feels like its own weird little country within the state. So we said after we dropped the kids off from school, we went out to get a bite to eat and go to some thrift stores because, as sad as that is what my wife and I like to do together. That's what we call a good date. We go around some of the thrift stores and see if we can find a neat thing or two that we want to pick up. I ended up picking up one DVD. That was my haul for the day. But I decided after we made a few stops before we went home that I wanted to stop by the Gamestop in that town, which I don't think I'd been to in many, many, many years. And the reason I wanted to stop, as you'll recall, that I'm no longer actively collecting for the most part. There are exceptions, mostly being PlayStation VR and NES. But just because I'm not actively collecting doesn't mean that I don't still like to go to the game stores. And having not been to a retro store before, I wanted to see what it was about.
Don't let your kids watch it!
But I am telling you right now, that is not real.
Make no presence.
Walking into the place, the one thing I wasn't ready for, because I didn't expect, was just how large it was going to be on the inside. You easily could have taken my two closest GameStop locations, put them inside of this one, still had room left over. The floor was just wide open. And unlike my other local locations, the game selection for everything from PS4 on up was really solid. And I'm going to pause this here to discuss that. So what I'm wondering, because they've been closing stores in the area lately, two within the last 2 years, I'm wondering if that stock is getting shifted over to more of a flagship store type setup like this. And that it might be the reason that I'm not seeing a lot of supply in the other stores, but getting back to it. And they had a great toy selection. It wasn't limited to one or two clearance kiosks. They had several, as well as a huge back wall of toys. Now, I know what we're here to talk about was the retro aspect of it. Again, going to pause it here. What designates apparently a GameStop retro store is having a centralized location for their games. In this case, it was at the very back of the store, so you had to walk to get through it, which I find a little counterintuitive. I think if I'm going into a GameStop retro location, I should expect the retro to be front and center, to be like maybe even the first thing that I walk into to say, hey, this is something different. You have to walk through the regular GameStop to get to the back end. They had systems ranging from original Xbox up to PS3. They had some Nintendo, some DS, some NES, N64. And while the selection on the older systems, the 8, 16, and 64-bit generation of games, it wasn't just phenomenal, but I mean, it was nice to see it represented, because I certainly, at my other stores, I don't see that. I don't see games that old. Now, as you can see, I've paused it here. They had a copy of Tecmo Bowl, which is one of the few NES games that I'm still looking to pick up. And I'm looking, they had two different versions. They had one with a white seal of approval and the black seal. Black seal is the one I'm looking for. I had a couple extra players. I want to say one was Eric Dickerson. I could be wrong. But that's the one that I want. And had this one been the black seal, probably would have picked it up. But you know how that goes when you're looking for something, it's not there, and then when you stop looking, you just find it all over the place. Well, now that I'm actively looking for Tecmo Bowl, nobody has it. At least nobody has the black seal. But I digress. While it's cool seeing all these games from back in the day in a GameStop, the problem for this particular store is they sit almost directly across the street from a local outlet called Game Exchange, and that's all Game Exchange does is retro. So anybody in the area that wants to sell their collections, wants to sell those old games, those old systems, they really don't think GameStop as much, because that really until recently hasn't been GameStop's game, so to speak. So you got Angry Birds, a bunch of Wii games. And I really appreciated the toy selection, because while I'm not actively collecting games, I am still collecting like office decorations and cool toys and things to just kind of spruce the place up. I saw this one thing though, and if it hadn't been like $50, I probably would have snapped it up. If it had been under 30, I definitely would have grabbed it. You'll see it here in just a second. But it was this crossover between Transformers and Knight Rider, two of my great loves, and they came up with this character called Agent Knight. So it's a kit car with the flashing sensor, goes back to forth. Apparently it makes sounds and everything, and then transforms into a robot. You know, it's like when it comes to these to those old Transformers, normally I'm a bit of a purist. I normally only like the the generation 1 Transformers. It's the ones I collect. But I would have snapped that up in a heartbeat. As crossovers go, that was just absolutely cool. Anyway, it was a great day. There aren't any other GameStop retros in my state. I know, I've looked them up. That's the one and only. And I would really love to see if that's kind of indicative of what that experience is like as a whole across all its locations. If you happen to live near one, tell me about it. Or better yet, make a video about it. And come in here and comment a link to the video. I would love to watch it. It's a cool concept. It really is. But I just don't know necessarily that the supply is there to sustain it. But I guess we'll see. Anyway, as always, y'all, pick your battles, because not every hill is worth dying on.